All right, and welcome, my friends, to the next episode here, the Red Delta Project podcast live feed Q&A on the Red Delta Project YouTube channel, where we are helping you escape from the diet and exercise rat race while helping you build muscle and strength with calisthenics. Matt Schifferly, your host, and today I am presenting you with 5 kind of contrarian ideas and thoughts that have the potential to totally change everything you believe about how fitness works. And a lot of these are based on more of the behaviors of human nature rather than the actual fitness mechanics side of things. Because I think a lot of times when it comes to trying to figure out how to get better results when it comes to diet and exercise, building muscle, losing weight, whatever you're trying to accomplish, I think it's really easy to get lost in the weeds when it comes to, well, how many sets should I do? Well, how many grams of protein should I be eating every day? Is it okay if I work my legs 3 times a week? Or what about this guy who says once a week and stuff? And not that this stuff isn't bad or even effective to be looking at, but I really do believe that the true life changing and body changing information you need isn't going to be fine tuning your diet or your exercise program. It's going to be stuff that makes you wake up and be like, everything is different now. How I see my approaches, how I see food, how I perceive exercise, how I'm using exercise in a productive way. Everything is different. And that's why, from the very beginning of the Red Delta Project, and even long before that, I've always taken kind of a bit of a philosophical approach to fitness. Why? Because that's kind of the source code of your behavior, your beliefs, your philosophies, your ways that you see the world around you are really what's running the show. Your results, to a large degree, they don't come down to whether or not you're having casein protein or whey protein or whether you do calisthenics or free weights and stuff. Not that that stuff isn't important. It is, but it's really not that important. It doesn't really change things all that much. Let me give you a story here to kind of illustrate my case. Last night I was out with a couple of friends, and one of these gentlemen is extremely successful in business. Very, very successful, has a very unusual background. He was like a ragtag street fighter in New York City for a very long time and stuff. And he kind of carried a lot of those lessons over into the business world and stuff. And I love sitting down and just not even picking his brain, but hearing him just tell stories, because it is very clear that from a life, but especially a business perspective, you're like, yeah, you are not playing the same game as everyone else who's trying to become successful in business. Everyone else is playing checkers, and you're playing chess in outer space with an alien entity. Like, you are not even close to the same level of most other people. And that's definitely going to be the case. You see someone who's a professional athlete or someone who has a very high level of success in anything in life. And you're looking at someone, you're dealing with someone who is not doing things the same way. They're not looking at diet, exercise, money, relationships. They're not playing the same game. Everything about their perspectives, their philosophies, and their approaches in life is very, very different. And so we want to be open to some of these different perspectives, because you never know when one's going to completely change everything for you and really accelerate your progress forward. Now, I'm going to give you 5 of my top ones that just came off the top of my head when I was organizing this podcast over the past week. But I've got a lot more of these, of course, in my latest book, Be Fit and Live Free. And you can find resources to everything I'm going to be talking about today over at reddeltaproject.com. There's a link down below in the description as well. Helps to support the show. One of the things, let me give you this case in point, is the point number 1 is success in anything, but especially in fitness, is this only works if it gets easier. Say that again. Whether you want to lose weight, build muscle, improve your golf swing, make more money, the only chance you have at making this work is if it gets easier. Now, that's a little contrarian, because a lot of times in our fitness culture, and especially here in the West America, we love our hustle culture. We love bragging about how hard we work, how much sleep we get by on. I get 3 hours of sleep and my hair is constantly on fire, and you think you've got it tough, and all these sorts of things. And I used to have that attitude myself for many years, now knowing that that was largely a reaction due to low self-worth and self-esteem, and thinking that, oh, if I am low self-worth, I don't have good self-esteem. Therefore, if I can work hard enough, then I'll somehow become worthy of the success. I'll feel better about myself because I can outwork everybody in the room and so forth. But that's not how success works, because it largely just simply boils down to simple economics. When it comes to, you want to get successful in losing weight, building muscle and whatnot, at the end of the day, it takes time, it takes energy, it takes attention. Sometimes it takes money. Sometimes it takes even space in your apartment. If you're going to build a gym, you have to have space for all these sorts of things. It takes resources. And so when you start off, you can certainly make good progress by spending more resources, which is exponentially harder. Of course, you're working harder, you're spending more time, you're spending more effort, and that is great. And that does work extremely well at first. When I was starting off in Taekwondo, I did one class a week and I was making some progress, but it was pretty slow. And so the instructor was like, you'd be doing better if you took two classes a week. And so I rolled up my sleeves and I put in the extra effort and I doubled my training frequency for the week, and I did get better faster. And then I went to 3 times a week and 4 times a week and so on. And so it was like, yeah, okay, I'm great. I'm making more progress. But always remember that you cannot scale hard work. You only have so many of these resources that you can spend. Not to mention also that these resources are also taken up by other pursuits in your life. It's not like you just have 24 hours in the day of nothing going on. You also have jobs and school and other activities and putting gas in your car and errands and all these other sorts of things. So the fact of the matter is your resources are very finite. Therefore, the amount of work you can do is also finite. Not to mention that you also have an exponential increase in cost the harder you're working. When I went to 1 class to 2 classes a week, that was a 100% increase in my frequency, but it was only one more class a week. It was like, man, I definitely have the time. I got the energy for this. Yeah, this really isn't all that hard. Great. Then I went to 3 times a week and I was like, well, that's harder, but that's a 50% increase. And then I went to 4 times a week. Okay, it's only 25% increase, but man, now it's really hard to figure out how to jam these 4 classes into my busy schedule with school and everything else. Then 5 times a week. And that was really, really stressful in my lifestyle. If I had to study for an exam, I couldn't make it happen and so forth. So you see, you have an exponential increase in how hard you're working with a decreased rate of return. And so this is how hard work works. And so I'm not saying don't work hard. I'm not saying sometimes you should work harder, but you run out of runway relatively quickly when your basic goal is to just work yourself to get to the result you want. But if you look at real success had by humans in anything in life, literally throughout the entire course of human history, you'll notice that success only happens when people figure out how to make things easier on themselves, how to be as productive or more productive with the same amount of work or even less work. If you can produce a widget in a week, that is a certain amount of work. It takes a week. But if you could do it in 24 hours, you just made it easier. Therefore, you can produce more. When Henry Ford invented the assembly line, he figured out an easier way to build cars. And so he became a lot more successful. And that's how everything in life works, is success always comes from figuring out how to make things easier. And that's a contrarian idea, especially in our fitness culture, is that we're taught the hard way is the best way. If there's something that is really, really hard, and I even say that to clients all the time, it's like, we do things the hard way here in the gym. But the reason why I tell them that, we use progressive calisthenics techniques, we use a big range of motion. I want the technique to be hard on you. Why? Because it makes it easier to create the stimulus that we're after. If we're using really easy techniques, that would actually make it harder to create the stimulus we're after. So moving forward, the point of this is that you want things to get easier. You want things to get simpler. And you'll notice too, whenever you find someone who's very successful in losing the weight and building the muscle and stuff, they'll have a period where it's tough and it's tricky to get started and stuff. But eventually they get to a point where it's like a cruising altitude sort of deal. It's like, oh, this got so much easier. And more importantly, sometimes you engage in some sort of habit that just keeps getting harder. And that's usually a sign you're on the wrong track. Happens a lot with diet, where people will start a new diet and they got like the honeymoon period going on and they're like, oh, yeah, giving up carbs or giving up processed foods and stuff. That was really easy. I don't know, understand why people find this hard. The first few weeks, it was really kind of easy. It's not hard. And then the cravings start to kick in. And then you're like, well, what do I eat when I go to my family's company picnic or when I'm out at a restaurant and stuff? And if you notice that things are getting harder and harder and harder, that's usually a sign you're on the wrong path, that you're making things harder for you. So when I was doing Taekwondo, 5, sometimes 6 classes a week, it kept getting harder and harder and harder for me to do it. And one, it wasn't any more fun, but it was beating me up. I wasn't recovering very much. I was always tired. I was cranky. I was irritable. Joints started hurting and stuff. It kept getting harder. That was not the path to become a better martial artist for me. Sure, I was working a lot harder, but I've learned for me, especially out here back into formal training, that 2 to 3 times a week of formal training of classes is the sweet spot for me. That it's not necessarily good if I do 4 or 5 classes a week. Will it make me better a bit? Yeah, sure. But it's not probably that beneficial cost to work ratio. But if I figure out a way that I can train more effectively in half the time, now we're talking. So, yes, hard work is fine. Hard work and effort, absolutely part of the deal. But this only works if it gets easier, because at a certain point, you're going to run into that wall where you just can't or are unwilling to work harder. In other words, invest more resources. And when you hit that wall, you simply cannot make any progress. It will not happen because your goal has just been to use more resources. And the only way you can make progress is to become more efficient, aka make things easier. So easier is not bad. It is a very, very good thing. And in fact, it's oftentimes the only way that we can actually go anywhere, which I'll discuss in point 2 here. But we got some questions coming on in. Good to see you folks. Cristobal saying, hey, Matt, good to see you. Thank you, my friend. In your opinion, which one is best for grip strength, fat grips or towel pull-ups? I'm a big fan of the fatter grip kind of things. These new fat grips. Here they came out with Duonomic has got these that are adjustable. They've got different diameter grips that you can use, not to mention also a rotating handle is a lot harder to grab onto. The handles for the NOSC trainers, sometimes at the gym where we have these as well, these are a fairly beefy handle and they also rotate. And when people are starting to train and they use those for rows and progressive pull-ups and stuff, they'll be like, gosh, my grip, oh, my grip, my grip, my grip. And so that's usually what I go off of, because it's a bit more easy to integrate that into your normal training. You don't need to do extra exercises. So again, case in point, make it easier. If you are utilizing a fatter grip that rotates, that's going to make it, well, harder on your grip, but easier to build your grip doing the exact same exercises you're doing now. You don't need to add extra exercises. You don't need specialized grip training. Your grip's going to get stronger. And one of the like holy grails, I guess you could say, is to utilize habits that don't really require any more work than what you're already putting in. You can do the same routine, you can utilize the same exercises, and you're going to get more grip strength because you're using a bit of a fatter grip. So rotating grip. So that's the way I would go about it. It's also a little bit harder on the fingers and stuff. A little bit of a tendon issue. And I was doing an aerial yoga class a couple of weeks ago, and my hands hurt afterwards. Not like, oh, they're sore, but my hands physically hurt. Like, oh, they need to get conditioned for that. Usually with a grip, you're better off with that sort of thing. So a fatter grip, ideally one that rotates as well, is probably the best way to go with that. Lost 50's asking, hey, any advice on running and training for half marathons? I'm not the guy to ask for that because I don't run. And I'm certainly not running for any kind of distance. So generally though, I mean, you run. You run. That's how you get good at running, is you run, and you run for distance, sort of thing. But typically it's use whatever your abilities are. Always remember that when you're basing your training off of what you should be doing, you always take into account your current level of ability. So if you get winded running around the block, well, you're going to have running based programs based on that. But if you can run a 10K without even really any preparation, then you base your program off of that. When in doubt, always get a coach, specialist coach for that sort of thing. Cristobal is coming back saying, Matt, how do you measure progress on your current training? Progress, I've always said, should be kind of like getting hit in the shins with a 2x4. It should be extremely obvious. You shouldn't need a lot of times the trackers and the apps, and you're like, okay, let's see, I did this, more reps. Okay, wait, let's see, carry the one, and by the formula, and enter, and oh, look, it looks like I'm making progress. No, you should jump off a pull-up bar and be like, holy crap, those got stronger. Or you should run, 2 miles and be like, that's a hell of a lot easier than it is. I rode up Deer Creek Canyon today, and I was just loosely kind of keeping time. I wasn't using a stopwatch or anything. I was just looking at my clock, saying, okay, we started around 8 a.m. And when we got to the top, I was like, oh, about 8:15 or so. I was like, yeah, that's a hell of a lot faster than what I've done it, because it usually takes me the better part of 2 hours, and I did it like in an hour and a half. So I'm not using a lot of metrics to measure progress these days. It's usually more of like, wow, that's a lot stronger, and wow, that feels really good, and holy smokes, what a pump that was, and and my shirts feel better, or I look in the mirror and I'm like, yep, shoulders looking good. Awesome. That's usually my way. I'm a lot more on the subjective sides of things. Usually, especially if you're fine tuning things, like, okay, I just ran that marathon 3 seconds faster. Good. Then you need the specialized programming or the metrics and things. But really, does that make much difference? No. I always like to go after the types of progress that are very obvious, that are that are game changers. I'm not interested in, well, I just bench pressed 226 on this weight machine versus 224 the other day. It's like, okay, yeah, that's fine. Is it going to feel or make you look different? Not really. I'm always going after the stuff that's really, really obvious. So you shouldn't necessarily need to have too much working in with measurements and stuff. Joseph Bello, it's good to see you, my friend. And saying, Matt, if I do my push-pull squat routine, if the exercise gets easier, should I be able to do more reps and dial my technique in to work the muscle? So yeah, if it's getting easier, basically that means that you can add resistance. You will be able to do more repetitions. You'll get more range of motion. You'll be able to have better technique. You'll feel more solid with it. So you should be able to get more out of the exercise. And that's what you're looking for. Even if you were doing the same number of repetitions, then you should still feel like that's a stronger rep. That's feeling more stable. That's feeling a difference with that. And in other words, is it getting easier? And as I was just saying, that you want things to feel more like you own the technique. One more before I go into point 2. Ben Madidi. Sorry, I can't pronounce. I'm still tired after my ride. Hey, Matt, I've been doing high frequency training with one set near failure, and I'm getting results. I tried the time set 3 minutes, and I now need more rest. I think I should keep or mix in the long run. It's all about what you want. So remember, as I talked about in a previous episode, my friends, that a lot of times programming is just about managing fatigue. Are you comfortable with having a certain degree of fatigue that you need to recover for several days afterwards? Or do you feel like, I want to be relatively good and fresh and ready to go on a daily basis? Like you're a athlete, martial artist, and you're like, I don't want to have my legs completely destroyed for the next several days, kind of stuff. And it's all about measuring fatigue. Remember that always boils down to what is the fundamental objective you're hoping to get in your training. Because you can train 20 different ways from here till Tuesday. As long as you're still achieving the same fundamental objective, you're going to get the same results no matter how you train. If you're still really pushing the fatigue of your muscles, you're still stimulating hypertrophy and going to build muscle, regardless of what your program looks like. High volume, low volume, high frequency, whatever. As long as you're still getting your muscles to a point where they're really having to grind out a couple last reps, you're still creating roughly the same stimulus. It's just a case of how frequent are you doing it and to what degree of fatigue you're doing it as well. So train more based on personal alignment, personal lifestyle considerations, or just even preference. You could just feel better one way or the other. It's like, I don't know why. I just like the once a day, one set kind of thing. Okay, great. Most of the time, and here's another, I'll just jump right into this with another point that is a little contrarian. Most of your diet and exercise habits should be based off of what you want to do, not necessarily what the evidence suggests is, quote, the best or the most effective way of doing things. To a large degree, you should base what foods you're eating, what exercises you're doing, how you're training on personal preference. Because that's what a fundamental approach teaches us, is that as long as you're influencing those fundamental processes that are responsible for your results, you can do pretty much whatever and still get really good results. So if you don't like going to a gym and you'd rather train at home, great. If you don't like high volume training and you'd rather keep it intense, great. As long as you're still achieving your basic objective, then you're going to get the result either way. But your ability to be consistent and push yourself and invest more of yourself into your training and stay more on point is going to boil largely down to how you feel about it. Are you getting an emotional payoff? And that's largely going to come from, do you like doing it? Is it something that you enjoy doing? Because the better the emotional payoff, the better it's going to be for your results. So you should base things off of largely as just, I don't know, I just feel better when I do it this way. I just like doing it that way. I just like working out more in the morning, or I just like having 2 meals a day instead of 3 meals a day, or whatever. That alone, that is more than fine to base things off of. You don't need scientific validity. You don't need to turn to research. You don't need to have scientific or experts backing you up. You could literally just be like, I just like doing it this way. End of discussion. That's more than enough reason to do it, as long as, again, it's legitimately influencing that process. And I know that's a contrarian idea, a little bonus one right there, is that you should base your diet and exercise habits largely on personal preference rather than what is supposedly effective. And sometimes you'll even have coaches who will say things like, oh, if you don't want to do it, that means you should do it. I get what they're going with that. I get the ideas of getting out of your comfort zone and, exploring new things that you're capable of and stuff. Absolutely. Yes, I understand that. But here's another contrarian idea. Comfort is where your dreams come true. You're not going to be able to do a productive workout until you get more comfortable doing the exercises. You're not going to be able to have a healthy diet until you get more comfortable with the meal prep or eating the foods. If you're eating the foods that you're, quote, supposed to eat, and every time you feel like you're going to be sick to your stomach and you hate them, no, you're not going to follow it. Comfort is our salvation. It's not something that is bad. Today, when I was on my bike, you don't have any idea how much technology on my bike and my equipment goes specifically into making me more comfortable on the bike. Why? Because when I'm more comfortable, I will ride harder, I will ride faster, I will ride more, I will be able to push myself to a whole new level of performance. But if my hands are uncomfortable, my back hurts, and my feet hurt, like lately my feet have been hurting for some reason. I think my shoes are a little funky, something, they shrunk or something. I'm not sure what's going on. But lately I've been riding my bike and it hasn't been the most comfortable experience. That's not good. That's bad. That's holding me back. Comfort is a beautiful thing. And the goal of much of our training is actually to get as comfortable with what we're doing as much as possible. You want it to get it to be like second nature, because once you get more comfortable with it, then you can level it up. But you can't do that until you become more comfortable with it. So the old adage is you have to be comfortable with being uncomfortable. And it's totally true. Can you be uncomfortable? A lot of times when people are trying, especially to push themselves for strength or building muscle, especially, one of the biggest things that holds people back is they're just not pushing themselves hard enough in their workouts. Time after time, the researchers pointed this out. It's like when people feel like they're done, they still need to go a little bit further in order to do that. You have to get comfortable with going to that place emotionally. You have to get comfortable with that. And I've got several clients right now. They be the first ones to tell me, they're like, I really, for years, I thought if I really push my muscle, I'm going to hurt myself. So they're emotionally uncomfortable with pushing themselves to that level. So we have to expose themselves to that level of work gently and progressively so that they get more comfortable with it, because when they're more comfortable with it, they'll be able to do it more. Comfort is our salvation. It's not a cage or anything. People are like, a comfort zone is where your dreams go to die. No, staying in your comfort zone or trying or being afraid of leaving it, that's where your dreams go to die. Your comfort zone is a wonderful place. You're going to spend most of your time there anyway, so you might as well build it into a very productive garden for yourself. But the question is, what are you bringing into your comfort zone? What are you cultivating into it? The other day, I was just kind of like, I'm going to relax a little bit. I'm going to kill some time. Let's see, it's been forever since I've watched any sort of series or anything on Netflix, and I just chose something kind of at random. I lasted like 10 minutes. I'm like, all right, I'm already bored. Like, I don't want to do this anymore. Why? Because sitting down and watching a lot of TV is outside of my comfort zone. I'm not comfortable doing that. Largely because I got 20 other things I'd rather be doing, right? But riding my bike up Deer Creek Canyon, totally fine. Totally fine. I was very comfortable emotionally with doing that. I didn't think I was in a rough place at all. So it's like, what is in your comfort zone? What are you bringing into it versus what are you keeping out of it as well? So comfort is not a bad thing. Comfort is a good thing. It's just like a lot of ideas in fitness, it's a potent thing. So you have to manage it well. A lot of times in fitness, when people say something is bad, it's not bad. It's just potent. It's strong, which is a very good thing, but it can be very bad if you don't know how to manage it, if you don't know how to use it in a productive way. Take a case in point, a lot of times people get up and nervous about sugar. Sugar is wonderful. Sugar is great for our body. It is one of our most fundamental fuel sources, which is why we have a taste for it. Sugar is awesome. It is excellent, but it's very, very potent. It's very strong. You don't need a lot of it in order to bring your sugar levels up and keep me riding my mountain bike up a mountain for an hour and a half. You don't need a lot of it. It's because we don't know how to use it in a healthy way that's screwing us over. So you find this a lot in society, is when there's a very powerful, strong element within our human nature or desire. Usually we just get scared of it, or a lot of times people will say, well, look at this person, they ate way too much, and they did this and they abused it, and therefore it's a bad thing. No, it's the abuse that's the bad thing. Other people, they use it and it's fantastic and it's wonderful. It's all in the use of it. And if we think to ourselves, well, it's bad, then we are throwing the proverbial baby out with the bathwater. I'm just coming out with a lot of them, kind of free forming a lot of these contrarian ideas here, folks. So I'm just going to keep going along with that idea. Botarian, Blacktooth, it's good to see you. Hey, Matt, I'm training based on a program I've designed myself. Very good. For the next 6 months. So I do not stretch on workout days, but I do mobility work on rest days. What's your take on stretching? So stretching, okay, here's the other contrarian one that I was going to mention a little earlier, but I'll just jump into it right now. Diet and exercise habits don't do anything. And let me put that again, okay? Diet and exercise habits don't do anything. Your stretches there, Blacktooth, they don't do a damn thing. Nothing whatsoever. Your workout doesn't do anything at all. Lifting the weights, doing your push-ups and pull-ups doesn't do anything. Unique. So what I mean by that, why this is so important to understand, is because the reason why fitness works is because when we engage in an exercise, we are effectively, proactively utilizing a process, influencing a fundamental process that is always happening completely on autopilot. And the same thing, it goes for strength, it goes for cardio, it goes for fat burning, it goes for everything. Everything you need to have happen in fitness is always happening. When we engage in diet and exercise habits, we're taking the things that are already happening and either speeding them up or slowing them down. That's what you're doing. So when you engage in stretching, you're not doing any type of unique, new, or different mobility work because you're always doing mobility work every single day, anytime you move your body. You reach up in the cupboard for cereal. Look, I'm engaging in lat stretching right now, shoulder mobility, just by reaching up and grabbing something. If you are doing lunges, for example, in your workout, there's a lot of mobility involved in lunges because all mobility is just using your muscles through a big range of motion, your joints through a big range of motion. It doesn't really necessarily matter what the exercise is. I get down in a dip, right? I got a lot of shoulder extension going on. I got the chest stretching out and everything when I'm doing my dips. That's mobility work. You have mobility work already in your strength training. The only question is just how much due to your range of motion. As I've always said, the best mobility work is strength exercises that just use a big range of motion of a muscle, not a range of motion of an exercise. That's a little different, but range of motion of a muscle. If you're taking your muscles through a big range of motion, that's mobility work, regardless of whether you put that label on it. So you're probably already getting a lot of mobility work. And then the stuff you're doing on your stretching, you may very well like be stretching out your hip, doing something, and your body's kind of like, yeah, dude, we know you already did this yesterday when you were doing lunges. But it's so easy for us to think that something is going on because we put a label on it. We are like, oh, now I'm doing a workout. Your body doesn't know what a workout is. It doesn't know what exercise is. All it knows is functional demand, and it adapts accordingly to that functional demand. And that's all you need to do when you're trying to create some sort of stimulus. Let me give you another anecdotal story here. Like out here, I've kind of gotten frustrated. My explosive power in my legs has really been wanting lately. Was in Taekwondo the other day, and they had us doing jumping and flying around, and I was like, oh, like only getting a few inches off the floor. It felt like, oh man, I used to have so much more power and explosiveness in my legs. This isn't good. This isn't acceptable. I need more power. So am I taking out a piece of paper and writing out an entire plyometric routine? No. Am I looking up on the internet for explosive exercises, even though I made a video about explosive push-ups just the other day? What's the optimal way to increase my explosive power in my... No. What am I doing? I live here on the second floor. So now when I climb the stairs, because it's usually faster to take the stairs than the elevator, every time I take the stairs, instead of stepping and climbing up the stairs, 1 step, 2 step, 3 step, I'm bounding up the stairs. That's all I'm doing. I'm kind of like skipping and going boom, boom, bounce, 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 bounce. Kind of like I'm half running up the stairs to create the explosive power. Doesn't need to be a workout, doesn't need to be an exercise. It just needs to have that functional demand. Asking your body to do something, regardless of the circumstances, is how you create that stimulus. So when you are working your body, you're probably already doing a lot of mobility. The only thing you need for mobility is to move the muscle through a fairly good range of motion. You don't need a workout. You don't need special exercises. That's fine to have it, but you're not doing anything special during that time. And that's why I tell people diet and exercise habits don't do anything. Because a lot of times in our fitness culture, we have programs and methods and exercises and stuff that are being sold to us that we're buying into either with belief or with our actual dollars. And we're often told, if you do this thing, you're going to make this special thing happen in the body. I engaged in not so much a debate, but a discussion one time with a guy who was all about intermittent fasting. Intermittent fasting is the greatest thing in the world. Everybody should be intermittent fasting. And one of his things he kept coming back to was, no, I'm going to mispronounce this is autophagy. kind of thing. Removing of dead turnover of cells, cleaning out dead cells, and so forth. Autophagy this and it increases autophagy, and you got to have autophagy and autophagy, blah 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 blah. Everything has autophagy to it. Sleeping does that. Exercise does that. Decreasing stress does that. Like, this is, again, something that is always happening completely on autopilot. And fasting doesn't make it happen because it's always happening. It may increase the rate it's happening, sure. And that has some value in it. That means it's got some validity to it. And that's fine. But a lot of times people will think, I have to have this diet. I have to have this workout. I have to do this exercise or this program in order to make this thing happen. And I guarantee you that thing is always happening completely on autopilot. You don't need to do a darn thing to burn fat. You're always burning fat. Gotta burn fat, wanna burn fat. Need to go in a fat burning zone. I gotta get my body geared up to burn fat. No, you don't. That's something that's always happening, totally on autopilot. When I was riding my bike up Deer Creek Canyon today, I was increasing my rate of calorie expenditure, my burning of sugar, my burning of fat and stuff. But that stuff was going to happen completely anyway. It just increased the speed at which it was happening. So it's the same thing with mobility. It's the same thing with strength. It doesn't matter if you're in the gym lifting up weights or if you're on a farm lifting up hay bales. The functional demand is there for your traps to contract under 45 pounds of resistance. So I think that's usually what a general hay bale weighs these days. It's a weight. It doesn't need to be a workout kind of thing, because Mother Nature did not evolve our body to have these adaptive qualities in the off chance that we might be working out in a gym someday. It's to accommodate the functional demands that we always experience. And if you have that demand placed upon you, then you'll have the adaptation, regardless of what label you put on it. Rob CP, Wood Turner, nice little Bernie there. I like that. He's very cute. 50 years old. I've been very inactive. Do you think I should do isometrics for maybe a month before starting calisthenics? Or should I start both isometrics and calisthenics at the same time? So here's another case in point. A lot of times when people are like, okay, I want to get into calisthenics. How do I start? How do I start with calisthenics? I always tell them, you've been doing them all your life anyway. Do you walk? Do you climb a flight of stairs? You say, I'm very inactive. Yeah, but do you get out of bed in the morning? Right? You're already physically active to some degree. You're already engaging your body to move through space somehow, unless you're, I don't know, bedridden and so forth. So when you do calisthenics, you're just taking that and you're just upping the ante. Same thing with isometrics. You're just creating muscle tension. You do that when you lift up a coffee mug. You're just doing it more. You're doing it at a faster rate. So in that case, I would say just do whatever makes you more comfortable right now. What do you have an emotional comfort with? If I say, okay, we're going to get you on a push-up program, and there's a part of you that goes, oh gosh, oh gosh, flashbacks to grade school when coach made us do all those push-ups. Oh God. Okay, maybe there's some emotional resistance there, but if you're like, kind of like this isometrics thing, it's really feeling good. I feel like I'm in control. I feel really safe and stable. It's like, okay, then that's the path you should take. Again, do what you want, my friend. Much of your success comes from doing what you want, what you are capable of. You always base your training off of your capability, not some program. Not, what someone says, oh, when you're starting out, you should do this push-up. Sure, give it a try, but if you're like, I don't know, that's kind of easy, well, then up the ante. You always train based on your capabilities. What can you do? What are you able to do? What do you want to do? When it comes to, you're starting off, you claim to be somewhat inactive. Literally anything is going to work. Anything is going to create a progressive demand. If you're contracting your muscles harder, they're going to get stronger, regardless of what you do. So don't get lost in here's the proper or correct way. Just do it to any degree. And if you feel like I can do this better, faster, easier, more comfortable with isometrics or calisthenics or free weights or bands or whatever, go that path. And then you'll naturally evolve in your preferences and your desires. And it'll say, okay, now I'm doing this. Now I kind of want to add this other thing and do this other thing. And that's where the real results come from, is where the evolution comes from. You move forward. So let's see other contrarian ideas here, folks. Um, here's a couple more that kind of go against, not so much against the grain. I always get a little ruffled when you hear these marketers out there. They're like, this is the stuff that the big companies don't want you to know, that the other trainers or the such and so, they don't, trust me, they don't care. The big pharma, the big, they don't give a flying hoot about if you figured out some hack or whatever. You're the last thing on their minds. And sometimes we get these ideas with the contrarian, like this is the stuff that the other fitness experts don't want you to believe or want you to know. It's like, trust me, they don't care. But here's a couple things that just kind of run a little bit counter to some of the other messages out there, is basically what I'm saying. Is instant gratification is a superpower. Okay, so instant gratification is not usually a very, very lauded after thing in our fitness culture. Again, why? Because it's extremely powerful. The faster you can get what you want, the better. That's just how human nature works. If you had a goal of achieving a result and I was like, it's going to take you 5 years, I'm like, okay, 5 years. But if someone out there came out and they're like, I can get it for you in 6 months, what are you going after? Right? What was that Ben Stiller movie? I forget. Oh God, please, someone in the comments, let me know so I don't stay up till 3 a.m. wondering about that. But he picks up the hitchhiker. Is like 7-minute abs, right? He's like, I got a great idea, seven, because then the program at the time of 8-minute abs was all popular. He's like, I'm gonna do a 7-minute abs. It's like, well, what would you rather have, 8-minute abs or 7-minute abs? And Ben Stiller's kind of like, well, yeah, 7-minute abs, And then they go down the rabbit hole. Of course, that would be hard if someone came out with 6-minute abs, and the guy's like, oh no, you can't possibly do 6-minute abs, kind of thing. But the bottom line is instant gratification is a wonderful thing. And the more we kind of like try to sweep it under the rug, the more it can be manipulated against you. Because a lot of the stuff that is, evil and bad out there is like, oh, instant gratification is a bad thing. No, it's just people don't know how to use it very well. Or people who have figured out how to utilize it the best can utilize it to manipulate your buying tendencies. Oh, you can get it faster, get it in 2 day shipping, get it in 1 day shipping, get it today, kind of thing. McDonald's came out as real quick and easy food, fast food. It's like, oh my gosh, there's that movie with Michael Keaton, where the founder, got that classic scene for the first part of the movie. He's like trying to order a cheeseburger at these diners, and he's like, I ordered this thing like 30 minutes ago. Where's my cheeseburger? Where's this? And then finally he goes to the first McDonald's, and he's like, okay, I'll have a hamburger and a Coke. And the guy's like, okay, plop, here you go. And he's like dumbfounded. He's like, what's this? He's like, your food. No, I just ordered. It's like, and here it is. Here, you ordered it and it's here, kind of thing. And this has been something that, again, easier is better. It only works if it gets easier. Anyone who can figure out how to be productive faster and get on that instant gratification is going to win. So if you can use that to your advantage, that makes you a superpower. Instead of utilizing this potent thing against you, it can be used for you. And one of the best ways to do that is to align yourself with habits that bring you instant gratification now, but also produce long-term benefits. So today I went riding up Deer Creek Canyon. Yeah, it was hard work, but it felt really good to just load off all the stress. I've been working on my breathing. I got a brand new road bike a couple of weeks ago. So I'm really happy to be riding that sort of thing. So I had a lot of fun. I was with one of my best friends. We were riding up and everything. It was a lot of fun. Now, sure, I'm working out on the bike because I want to, I don't want to gain too much weight. I want to be healthy into my old age. I want low blood pressure, blah, 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 blah. Sure. Okay. Yeah, that's going to benefit me 30 years from now. Awesome. Do I care? No. Why did I go riding today? Because I wanted to go riding today. I wanted the fun of a bike ride today. That's why I did it. So utilize habits that make your instant gratification fed. If you're trying to improve your diet, focus on making food really enjoyable and tasty. The human brain does not work very well with suffer now and have success later. We're just not wired very well for that. We can force it, and we can, to some degree, kind of manipulate us around. We can even start to build a belief of like, yeah, but I feel good doing this because I know I'm going to get this benefit. Whatever you need to work your Jedi mind tricks with, or your habits, get as much instant gratification as you possibly can. Because the more your habits make you happy today, the more you're going to just continue it. But if you're doing things and like, I hate doing this, this sucks, I feel bad, I'm not having fun, this isn't what I want, but it's going to pay off 6 months from now. That's not a scenario for long-term success and consistency. You can force it, but now again, you're talking about making something 10 times harder to maintain your consistency. You're making it an uphill slope. Easier is always better when it comes to getting in shape. If you can make it easier to work out, you'll work out more and you'll work out harder. If you can make it easier to have a healthy diet, you will have a healthier diet on a consistent basis. Easier, easier, easier. Always make things easier. Just because something is harder does not mean it is more productive. And so when we go for instant gratification, what kind of foods make you feel good now? What kind of exercises make you feel good now? What are enjoyable now? The more instant gratification you can get out of your habits that also have a long-term payoff, the more you're going to stick with it. The more you're going to invest in it. It's that simple. Instant gratification is something we should foster. It's something we should embrace and try to produce as much as possible. Gromit Monsieur, good to see you, my friend. Thanks for coming on in. I know I'm doing this at a very unusual time here, folks. My schedule this weekend got all kinds of clustered up. It was very much a all higgly-piggly. I usually do this on Saturdays at 2:30 p.m. Mountain Standard Time, but it just didn't happen this week. So it happens now. Again, this is adaptability. It was back, a lot of times when I was younger, it's like, no, you gotta do things the right way. You gotta force it to happen. If I did the podcast yesterday, I would have had to have canceled a couple of very important appointments with some special people in my life. And it's like, seriously, I'm going to cancel doing this thing or these things with these people that I haven't seen in months so I can do a podcast? Which, don't get me wrong, I love doing this. This is a very important thing for me. But one of these buddies that I joined up with, I haven't seen him in almost a year. I'm like, you're going to miss the opportunity to see him to hold a podcast that you could just as easily do tomorrow. Like, where are your priorities on these sorts of things, Matt? So that's why I said, sorry, guys, not doing it today. I'm going out with my friends. And here I am now. Speaking of which, so a lot of times when people were saying like, oh, no, you should have forced yourself to stick to the plan, you should have done the podcast anyway, to hell with that sort of thing, because that's, quote, discipline. A lot of times you get that attitude out there. It's like, I don't need motivation. I've got discipline. Here's the thing. Motivation is a million times more important than discipline. You show me a disciplined person, and I will also show you a motivated person. You show me someone who lacks motivation, that person will not have discipline. They are one right after the other. But let me explain what I mean by that, so to give a little bit of clarity. Because a lot of times in our fitness culture, we have this wild, very wrong representation of what discipline is. A lot of times we think of discipline as forcing yourself to do things that you don't want to do. That is not discipline. Sometimes a disciplined approach will involve that. Absolutely. It will sometimes involve that, but that's usually, if we think that's what discipline is, it's, oh, this is the hard thing. This is the thing I don't want to do. I should force myself to do it. That is not discipline, my friend. You are not disciplined by following those habits. You are obedient. It says, I got to do legs on Monday, so I do legs on Monday. Even though I hiked a 14er yesterday and I can barely walk today, I'm going to force myself to do legs today because that's a disciplined approach. No, it's your obedience to the program. You have this rule that says I got to do legs on Monday. And even though everything in my body is telling me I shouldn't be doing this because my legs are killing me and even my knees hurt and everything from that hike, I'm going to force myself to do it because I'm obedient to the rule. And obedience is fine in many scenarios. That's a good thing in many cases. But that is not discipline, because when we have a disciplined approach, Discipline means that you are assessing a situation, taking a look at pros and cons, gathering information, sitting down and making an informed, independent, and autonomous decision to do something. And you cannot do that without motivation. So you will never find discipline without motivation and vice versa. But you can have more discipline if you have more motivation. So if you gave me the option, Matt, do you want to have this disciplined approach to you, or do you want more motivation? I'd say, give me more motivation 100 times. Because if I have more motivation, the discipline will naturally follow. It will be a million times more capable of having a disciplined approach the more motivated I am. If motivation tanks, your discipline will sink right down with it. You cannot be disciplined if you do not have motivation. People are like, well, motivation ebbs and flows and it hears and goes. Yeah, so's your energy level. Sure, that's a lot of things in life are ups and downs. And if it's chronically down or it's going down, you've got a serious problem and you don't want to ignore that. It's like, I'm not motivation. I'm never motivated. I'm just going to force myself to do it. Great, but you're only going to do that for so long. And your subconscious is eventually going to find a way for you to hit the ejection seat and get the hell out of that program. You're not going to be long for those habits, which is good. Maybe you're probably better off doing something else. Probably better off doing something else when it comes to diet and exercise or work and all these other sorts of things. When motivation is starting to tank, that's usually a good sign. You should be making a change somewhere. But don't let this idea of kind of poo-pooing motivation steer you wrong. Motivation is essential for your success. And it is something you can develop and cultivate, like discipline. A lot of times people are like, well, discipline's like a muscle. You got to work it. So is motivation. So is motivation. There's formulas for it. There's ways, as I was talking about in Be Fit, Live Free. I talk about the process of motivation. If you know how it works, it's really easy to cultivate it and make it improve to a higher degree. So motivation, in many ways, is more important than discipline. If you seek and improve motivation, the discipline will naturally follow. Discipline is not a substitute for motivation. That's obedience. And you're only going to have the ability to obey any kind of rule or system or methodology so long, especially if it's not absolutely required. As I always say, when it comes to your diet and exercise habits, either desired or required. If it's not something you absolutely have to do, feel you have to do, or it's required for a particular goal, you're going to find a back door for it eventually. Mariano, it's good to see you. Hey, Matt, lately I take every workout as a Lego piece. They are all important, but alone they don't count. That helps with motivation. Yeah, that is a very good. I always like to think of bricks, bricks and building up a wall kind of idea. The Lego pieces are a good analogy as well. Because the micro workouts, a lot of times people will say, well, yeah, if I do this thing that only takes me 10 minutes, or even me, bounding up a flight of stairs to improve my athleticism, my explosiveness in my legs, you can look at that and be like, that's not going to do very much. And you're absolutely right. Short workouts don't do a whole lot. Bounding up a flight of stairs, is that going to make my legs really explosive and powerful? No, not really. When you only do it once. One brick does not build a fortification. But here's the thing, is even big, hard, blood, sweat, and tears leaves you completely exhausted for days afterward workouts, they barely do anything either, because they're all small influences to that process. The only way this works, again, is if it gets easier and you can build it up and stack it up over time. That's how we're going to be able to succeed with this stuff. You have to have that consistency in order to put those Lego pieces of those bricks, stack them up time after 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 time for months, weeks, years on end. And if you make it easier and you're more motivated to do that and you're more comfortable with it, oh, game over. Like, try to fail under those circumstances. But when you've got all that stuff working against you, your ability to stack up those bricks or assemble those Lego pieces is pretty much shot. And you're not going to have much of a chance for making things happen. One more little contrarian idea here. We humans will always follow the path of least resistance. Always. And so again, let me repeat, we'll always follow the path of least resistance. And that's another thing that gets really poo-pooed, and the coaches out there like, "Oh, everyone wants it easier. Everybody wants a path of least resistance." Yeah, they do. So you'd better build one. You'd better build that path, because when it comes to your travels in life between where you are now and where you want to go, the only thing you have any authority or can't think of the word, any counsel over is the path between the 2 points. If you're in the wilderness and you want to get to town, you want to build a path to town, you can't change where the town is. Okay, you want to build muscle, you want to lose weight, you want to have a better credit score, whatever you want to do, you can't change where that destination is. The destination is there, you have to go to it. That's something you can't control, but you can control the path. You can build the path yourself. And we will always follow the path of least resistance. And sometimes the path is not leading us in a direction we want to go. So what do? You build better paths. This has been observed in social scientists, human behavior psychologists for years, is that if you want to make something happen, put habits in place that remove friction that lead you along that. So you're building that path. But at the same time, it can help to add obstacles towards the things that are detrimental to that. So let's say you want to eat healthier, right? The food in your environment is going to be the food of your diet to a large degree. So what's in your fridge? What's in your cabinets? Well, generally, that's whatever was in your shopping cart. So what goes in your shopping cart goes into your pantry and fridge, and that is what goes into your body. So if you have the habits and the types of shopping behaviors where it's all junk food and tons of fast food, and you come home and then you open up your phone and the very first screen, you've got like 4 different meal delivery apps right there and stuff, you have a path of least resistance towards not the best healthy diet. But if the opposite's the case, well, now it's a lot easier to have a healthy diet. So again, case in point, like I don't watch a whole lot of TV. I'm not going to be sitting around staring at a screen a whole lot. Why? I don't have a TV. Right now, I'm doing this podcast. I'm recording this sort of thing on my iPad. This is, other than my phone, the only screen I've got. Okay, I've got a Nintendo Switch too, but that's literally like up in a cupboard right now. It's so out of sight, out of mind, I even forget I have it. So right now, my path towards watching a lot of TV has got a lot of obstacles to it. And it's a pain in the butt for me to watch a lot of TV. But I've got those mountain bikes there. I got my fitness equipment here. It's ready to go. I work out all the time. Why? Because it's the easier thing for me to do. So it's not a question of, oh, can you resist it? Or, are you being weak by following the path of least resistance? We always do it. You're going to. It's not something you have a choice with. You're going to follow the path of least resistance. The question is, what path are you building? Are you building a path of habits that will get you where you want to go? Or have you built a path because you haven't really been too proactive about it, haven't really been self-aware of it, that it's easier to do a lot of habits that take you away from what you want and where you want to go? That's the thing to consider. Build your environment to be conducive to what you want. And I know it can be a little harder when you're living with other people, of course. I live alone. I have my own small apartment. So everything in this apartment is my own domain. And I have a path of doing everything that I want here. But we will follow the path. You don't get a choice in that. You're going to follow the path of least resistance. The question is, what path have you set up? Where is it leading? And if it's leading to where you want to go, great, make it even easier. Easier is better. But if it's kind of always taking you down the path where you've got habits that are not good for the results you want or the life you want, time to start building up that path a little bit different, because we're going to follow it anyway. It's just a question of where does it lead? All right, let's get to a couple last ones here before we finish off here. Blacktooth is back. It's good to see. I like that avatar. That's really cool. Did you design that yourself? That's really neat. But anyway, saying, can you recommend 1 or 2 books for research? One of your own is fine. My favorite, Bruce Lee's Striking Thoughts. Fantastic book. Love that book. But it's philosophical. Yeah, that's a good place to start. I also love the art of expressing the human body. You're ahead of me there. That's what I was going to recommend right there. Yes, absolutely. So Bruce Lee stuff. What else do I have? Where is that? So if you're into the philosophical stuff, what you may want to continue with is Be Water, My Friend by Shannon Lee. So this continues off of a lot of Bruce's teachings and talk-ins and stuff. And I was lucky enough to get an autographed copy when it first came out. So that would be a good one, Be Water, My Friend, if it's still in print. The other one that was also really important was my friend Kaki Okamura came out with this one called The Art of Balance. If you don't know of her work and her newsletters and stuff, I highly recommend it. I have a Japanese Asian background for a lot of my stuff that I've done, and she grew up living stateside and in her native country of Japan. I think it was her native country. Yeah, she's Japanese. And so this is a good one as well that I highly recommend. Let's see, there's a book I'm reading right now that I do highly recommend that kind of goes along with a lot of the things I've been talking about today, called Trying Not to Try. Let me see if I can't get exactly what it was called here for you. Trying Not to Try. The author is... shoot, I'm messing this up, but yeah, Trying Not to Try. Basically what it was is I've always been this individual who feels like I've got to go 100% all the time, and that's not admittedly the healthiest approach to many things in life. And I think we've all experienced this idea of how success or results were coming to us a little bit easier and faster if we just backed off a little bit. I just did a podcast, I think it was last week or 2 weeks ago. You can find it in the archives, that I did basically on this idea of, is trying too hard basically holding you back? Is trying not as hard actually going to be more productive? I even did that again at my ride up Deer Creek Canyon, where I was like, I'm going to try something. And I was always one gear lower than I usually would have been. So my RPMs were a little higher, and I attribute that to the fact that I was able to breathe easier, my legs felt better, and I rode up it in record time because I wasn't trying to ride up it as fast as I possibly could. So those are the books that I would recommend. Of course, all my books are amazing and they're life-changing, and you should buy every single one of them, of course. Now, when it comes to nonfiction stuff, I always recommend read with intent. Don't just pick up one of my books like Be Fit, Live Free and be like, oh, I wonder what this is about. Read it. Yeah, it may change your life. It could also be a complete waste of time because it's not the information that you need at this time along your journey. So Be Fit, Live Free, I wrote for those who want a bit more of an understanding of how fitness actually works and how to make it work in their life, especially if you've been frustrated with it for a good period of time. Micro workouts, short on time and energy. Great, awesome. Progressive and weighted calisthenics, if you want a good foundation of how to use bodyweight training for building muscle and strength. All of my books, they have a point to them. But if you don't specifically want to accomplish the objective from that book, well, it may not be worth it to buy the book or to read it. And so that's what I would say is, what information do you want to learn right now? What do you want to grow and improve upon? Because I also did a podcast, that was the one from last week actually, is one of the most important things you can ever do in your life and fitness is to get clear on exactly what you want. So that way you can, basically carve a path towards that destination and have the path of least resistance lead you to where you want to go. I'm starting to ramble a little bit, starting to stumble on my words a little bit, so I know that means it's time for me to head on out and grab some more food. I'm going to cook up some potatoes here and some chicken for dinner as well. Still hungry from the ride earlier, but thank you everybody for coming on in today. It was great to see some new faces. Mariano, Joseph, good to see you as well. Don't forget, folks, I always publish the audios of these live streams on the podcast directory of your choice. If you just search Red Delta Project on your podcast directory, Spotify, Pandora, Apple Podcasts, and stuff, you'll find that as well. Also, don't forget, I keep meaning to mention this, and I keep forgetting, the new Delta Digest, the new newsletter over at reddeltaproject.com. I've got a new bonus there for those who sign up for the updates, where it's a audio coaching program that I created, which is 10 things, or it might be 9 things. I think I condensed 2 of them into 9 things you need to know about building muscle with calisthenics. That's a free little gift there to those who subscribe to the digital Delta Digest, the triple D, if you will. And that's on reddeltaproject.com. The link is down below in the description. You can check out that. You can also check out my coaching programs. Micro coaching as well is a resource available for those who just want quick little bits of help with programming and technical checkups and stuff. So all that down below in the description. It helps to support the channel, helps to support me as well. Greatly appreciated, my friends. And I will talk to you next week. Till then, be fit and live free.